Good morning. My name is Bertram Tsavadawa. I am a Hopi and Wallapai Havasupai native. Hopi is from the northeastern part of Arizona. Today, actually, we are here at the Spring Creek Trail nearby Cedar City, Utah. And so the local area would have the natives of the Paiutes. I'm enjoying this particular area because it's my very first time to be here as well. We had found one of the brush that's also a common one that we find in our Hopi area, which is known as the rabbit brush. In our Hopi culture, the women folk on the third mesa villages, they do create what is called a wicker basket. And just because the linears, once after you take off all the outer coating of the leafery and the outer skin, the inner portion of it is that wicker type material that's very bendable and flexible. The flowers that are also picked could be a dye to create that yellow ochre golden color. So it has its purpose of being a basket material, but also a dye for the wicker material itself. But also in understandings, our ancestors used to create cotton weavings and textiles. So even the flowers would dye the cotton string in that golden color as well. The name of this trail pertains to as being Spring Creek. We are next to the creek right where the trail does cross over. One of the native plants to the southwest species that's found here would be the willows. Since it's very flexible and bendable, similar to a wicker material, it would be used for those burden basket containers that are making the U shapes of the thicker diameter ones into two, and then weaving the wicker material around those U-shaped hoops that's drying out to carry whatever burdens that they were gathering, the berries, maybe even such as architectural material as clays or stones. Since our Hopi people and ancestors built a lot of the evidence in the Southwest known as the Pueblo architecture. Right next to the creek, I've noticed we have what is commonly known as the term in the Southwest as Indian rice grass. And definitely, just this one little bunch would not be that one bowl of rice meal for an individual. So they had to take a lot of it, to give that feeding to the people. And in our Hopi pronunciation for the Indian rice grass, we pronounce this plant as lehu. Again, just by this creek, it is flourishing with a lot of the plant life here. So we got some edibles that are here with the rice grass. We see evidence of what is commonly known in the Southwest as the Indian paintbrush. There is these little green items that are protruding from the main flowers. But when you pull on that, in those little tubulars, there is this little sap that is just like honey. So a natural sweetener as you're traveling, yes, you would find these and suckle on that to, just replace those now known as the electrolytes, what we're losing from our body as we sweat and perspire. And also another type of edible foods that is found here would be the sumac berries. And a common description is given to the berries as lemon sour berries or mountain sour berries, but the sourness is just exactly like the lemon flavor. So once when they start drying up, or even I found a dead branch as well that shows of these clusters, what the women folk will do is pulverize and crush these berries down into like a powdery substance, and we would have the powdery flavor from the berries, have the Spring Creek water, put it together, and we made our own natural type of Kool-Aid. But also sumac branches can just be another type of basketry material. It's very flexible and bendable. And if you do and understand the colors of willow branches, they would be more reddish, darker brown. Sumac has the more lighter color to it. They could create a design with playing with the colors of the darker to the lighter items, or create their own traditional symbols on these baskets to give that creativity to the artist, to the basket maker, to make these geometric designs. There is definitely a lot of evidence of the oak that's amongst the trees of the pine and the cedars. One of the hunting materials to create the bow would be from the oak. tree or branches, or the saplings, as the more smaller shoots are actually more straighter, because they are definitely more bendable and flexible to create that hunting item of the bow. Oak is also one of the sturdy wood materials that would be used as different layers of the roofing material on the architecture of our ancestors and even some of the traditional Hopi homes of today. Beside me over here is one of the pine trees, which is commonality to seen in a lot of the forest and mountainous areas. One of the particular items that we utilize will be the sap that comes from the trunk and branches of the pine tree. In the heat, it can kind of soften up, and so you can put that kind of a layer on top of your scrapes, cuts or abrasions or the blisters. So it has multiple uses to them. In the cones itself will also be forming the nuts, so commonly known as pine nuts, but the pine nuts is what is edible and what is picked during the times of maybe end of July throughout the fall, depending on different elevations and regions where you're living at. In our Hopi language, we do pronounce that pine nut as tuba. Even the Paiutes have that same exact language pronunciation of the word for the pine nut of the tuba. So they do their own ceremonies and their own songs and chants at the time of picking of the nuts as well. But that's one common synonym pronounced word that I understand from the Hopi language to Hualapai, Havasupai, and the Paiute language. We have found evidence of the juniper. The juniper does not have those bluish light green berries that you would see on the cedar. And also the juniper is more softer, bendable, and flexible. In our Hopi teachings, we do boil the cedar and juniper. And it can either be a cleanser for the body, or in the winter times to soothe your throats from the sore throats and coughs. But it has all its healing properties within it. It has those similar uses as the pine sap, so the cedar sap as well, and juniper sap will be useful. As the town name pertains to Cedar City here in southwestern Utah, we do have one of the small growths still that's going to mature of a cedar tree here. And as earlier mentioning about the difference from a juniper, it definitely has more of a greener tint color to it. The leafery is more shorter, stubbier, and sturdier. A juniper is minus the berries, but these ones do have the cedar berries. As you peel the skin off of it, the inner side is that actual seed. So some cultures, like our neighbors of the Navajo, Dene, and other tribal peoples, natives, they'll drill a hole through that seed, and that's what they call a cedar bead. So they'll make the cedar bead necklaces and other native items out of that. And then also, if you take off some of the branches and tie them up as a type of bundle, as what's known as a smudge stick, you can burn it so the aroma and the smoke does help with cleansing, keeping bad karma away, the bad vibes. So it's a cleanser, a purifier in that form also. We have found some sage as the common understandings, but this one in particular, the leafery kind of look like a tooth. But sage is also a very good medicinal plant. If you boil it like a tonic and let it cool off, you can put that on bruises or sore muscles, so it helps out for relaxing. If it's on a bruise, it kind of takes away of that discoloration. Also, you can collect quite a bit of the linears, dry it out, so that way you can also use it as a smudge stick. It protects you away from all the bad vibes and the karma as well. And so there's so many uses for the sage as well, as that other tribal native peoples will have their own names and usages of the different plants that are found in their local areas. I really enjoyed this time here in the Spring Creek Trail. My very first time to Cedar City area, so everything was so new to me. There were certain fauna and plants that, again, I'm not too familiarized because we don't live nearby the mountains, but definitely as much as I could share today, I thank you very much for listening to my words and sharing what I have to share from our Hopi culture, our views and perspectives of the plants that are found within the mountain and forest areas. And so, kwakwa in our language means thank you for the males. Kwakwa, thank you for allowing me to be part of this project.